That is a link to my. It's a link to my credit card.
What's the problem with that?
uh,
Showing some geo love right there, James. Come on.
these days, like, it's probably already hacked. You just go to the dark web. I always love it when, like, when you open up a USA Today when you're traveling, there's a whole expose on the dark web. Like USA Today even understands what the dark web.
The dark web really is, right? They have I'm sure they have reporters hanging out there all the time.
Yeah, well, they. So
they have.
They do, but I don't know. USA Today is all about like infographics, right? And so they try and like create this fancy graphic to describe the dark web, and the graphic says it's like the internet, but it's darker.
So you bring a flashlight. I mean, but do you think that USA Today really has any reporters, or is it all just AP stories, kind of?
So I always wondered about that. So I think what it is they don't really have their own reporters anymore. So was it Gannett that owns it?
Yeah.
They own the newspaper here in Arizona, and like when I start going to other newspapers, I reckon it's like the same look and feel. So I bet they just farm it out to all the other newspapers, and they probably have like a bureau in Europe and a bureau in Tokyo and a bureau in wherever. But all the domestic stuff, like, because I'll read something in the Arizona Republic, and I'll go travel, and then the next day that article is in the USA Today, and I'm like, oh, I read that article.
USA Today is kind of like the Google News of newspapers, except not as extensive.
The best thing about it is you used to be able to get the front page, flip it over, and look at the weather. And they didn't put the weather on the back of the front page anymore. It's an ad now, and so it's like you can't even check the weather quickly anymore.
They had one job. They had one job, and they
be the light news newspaper. So when you wanted to find sports scores and the weather,
exactly, that was it. And there would be a nice, pretty picture on the cover or something. You're like, oh, that's an important story. Okay.
Pretty picture, or a life-changing event, like kid gets rescued from the mine shaft, and
exactly.
Go mom crying, holding on to the baby.
And there's a shot from a helicopter.
Yeah, down with like people doing things. Right?
Exactly. That's it. Just
keep recycling that story
every time.
Well, all right. Welcome everybody. This is Hangouts James Fee. This is a special episode because Steve, was it you or me that couldn't do it on Friday? Before I criticize you.
This time it was you.
Okay.
You couldn't do this Friday, but I couldn't do like however many Fridays in a row, and then however many Fridays after. So you were like, "Oh no, it's this Friday. I can't." You're right because it's Passover.
So Passover? They still do that?
Yeah, only a couple thousand years. Why stop now?
So I had the Hangouts with James Fee interns compile a list of guests and repeat guests, and they emailed this to me, and of course it won't open. There it is. And this is officially your 6th Hangout with me.
What happened on Saturday Night Live when you remember though that you would have those specials when someone would like host it?
Yeah, it was Steve, I don't know. There's so many guests. So you're 6. Steve Coast is 4. Paul Ramsey's 3. A whole bunch are 2. So you are the. I got to update this. It says 5. I got to make this 6.
Yeah. So I'm a serious player.
Yeah, you are. You are my go-to when I can't find anybody.
I think we should just make it a regular. No, I don't have enough interesting things to say.
Yeah, we'd run out of what we're doing. So this is a special day, so we're not going to have one Friday, and I don't even have a guest lined up for next week because it's so early. But someone good.
I'm sure.
Ian White, who apparently is in Nepal.
Ian White, he's into what is that? The Krakauer book, into the mist, into the nether. What is that? I don't.
Yeah, he's off doing his own thing, finding enlightenment or whatever you do in Nepal. I've never been, so I don't want to judge.
And it also must be nice. I would just have to say to be
in
able
Nepal?
to just be able to like be like, oh, I'm going to go do whatever I want for the next however many months.
I don't think he's like the active guy of urban mapping anymore. I think he kind of.
No, I think so. Did someone buy it from him?
I don't know. It could be. Well, why else would you go to Nepal unless you sold your company, right?
Right, exactly.
So we'll hopefully find out here in the next year what he's doing.
Do you know what the funny thing is? My Facebook page, Ian White needs to be on your panel, still gets visits. Like every once in a while, I get like
it's my homepage when I start up Chrome. So every time I start up Chrome, it goes.
Ian White needs to be on your panel.
Yeah, so I just kind of hit it, and I kind of like things every once in a while just to.
Great. Nobody's posted anything, but people still go there, and I'm not sure why.
Well, there's not a lot to post about Ian White.
No.
He's in Nepal.
Exactly. Not doing things.
so something happened interesting a couple weeks ago, and I wanted to have you on but we couldn't. And in fact, Mark couldn't even be on. He was on right the week before this closed.
I know he peaked too early.
Yeah,
Mark peaked too early. It's all downhill for him.
he did. So what happened was there was this company called deCarta that was basically the foundation of everything web mapping for most companies.
Yeah.
But they never could turn it into anything. Everyone just used them and then invented their own stuff and left them.
Yeah.
And they've probably pivoted how many times? 100, 200 times in their career?
Yeah, they weren't major pivots. It wasn't like, was it AppFog or whatever it was to Docker or something like that. It wasn't a huge, but they did some pivots in there. There were 4 different business strategies, then 1 business strategy, then 3 business strategies. They were doing a little bit of pivoting in there.
Yeah. But eventually, something happened, and they were acquired by Uber of all people.
Yes.
And if anybody hasn't read Mark's blog post, it's linked everywhere. He had a couple insights into it. But you used to work at deCarta many years ago.
Indeed, I did. Actually, you know what? And I'm actually going to be more fun to talk about it than Mark is, because Mark actually had some financial dealings with them. So he was under NDA and stuff. Like, I can just make stuff up, and then just like, it doesn't matter because I didn't really know much at all. Like the last time I talked, Brent Hamby is one of my good friends there, CTO. Mm-hmm. And the last time I actually talked to him is over a year ago. And then Mike Cottle, who was the head of sales, last time I talked to him, I was in London or something, and that was like 6 months ago. So I don't have much information about the end game, so I can make all the wild conjectures, and nobody can sue me, really.
Okay, so let's just start the conjecture route here.
Okay.
So we're let's say 6 months ago. We can even see longer. Let's just say we're deCarta.
Yeah.
6 months ago.
Yeah.
What are we thinking if we're deCarta?
So I think what? It was actually longer than that. It was the time when they basically took all their stock and said, worth nothing. Like basically they went down the startup route of, we're going to reevaluate, I forget the technical term, Mark, put it in the IRC feed for the technical term, when you basically say, all that stock, gone. Anybody who invested in our A round, our B round, our C round, you have nothing now. It's all gone. If you want to come in, thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Thank you, but you're out of luck. So, and all the employees who had left, who had bought stock, like, stock options, who had exercised them, gone. Nothing. So if you wanted to come in again, you could come in again, but we're going to reevaluate the value of deCarta. Mm-hmm. And so that was actually a pretty crazy move at the time, right? I mean, I think the part of the problem became, and this is a problem I see with a bunch of startups, as soon as you take venture money, you're on somebody else's, you have to make somebody else's investment back. And so it's not, you no longer can control your destiny. So at a certain point, they kept taking so much venture money that they couldn't sell for a price that was reasonable for the company, given their technology, right? So what was left, they basically said, fine, we're worth nothing again, or I forget what the valuation was, like 10 million or something like that. And so then they could actually sell. And so that's what they were doing. They were just building a business case again, waiting around, I think, to get bought again.
So as far as deCarta is concerned, being acquired by somebody clearly was the path. What do you think Uber acquiring you versus others? Do you think this is a good thing for the company employees, or is it just?
I think the fact that they got acquired is a good thing for them.
Okay, just period. Just period.
Just period. It had been going on so long, right? And I never really liked when some of the people interior to the company use this analogy, because it was really pretty sexist. But they would say things like, we're at the prom and we want to get chosen. And they kept talking about that, like, we want to get, and I was like, chosen to dance. Yeah. I never really liked that. That was kind of dumb. But I think that they had been waiting around so long for somebody to acquire them, and there had been so many discussions about that we're going to make it big. Like, I forget, was it PlaySpace that got acquired by Apple?
Yeah, PlaySpace.
Right, and then all those started happening. I was kind of there when I was at deCarta when that was happening, and everybody was like, "Yeah, look at how much money they got for their stuff. We're totally going to be rolling in bucks." Yeah. And it just kept passing them by, right? Very early. Yeah, and so very early on, when Google started using them, Yahoo came to them and said, "Look, we can't have our biggest competitor using you," because they were first a Yahoo customer, and then Google. Some brilliant people in Australia figured out how to do the caching maps, and they used the deCarta engine to make the tiles. But the Australians were then acquired by Google, and then Google made the Slippy Maps using the deCarta engine, and so Yahoo was upset. Nice, Mark. Actually, that is true too, Mark. That I have long-standing issues from my prom days. And so what happened is that Yahoo's like, well, we're going to buy you because we can't have Google using you. We need to be differentiated. And there was an offer made, and deCarta decided, no, that wasn't enough money. So they missed that round. Exactly. They missed that round. And then the entire marketplace changed from underneath of them, right, with Google giving everything away from free. Google Maps was one of the first APIs for free. There's a whole ecosystem here, but screw it. We have so much money, we just want you on our platform.
Just use it whatever you're going to do with it, and as long as I don't have to do anything, you go and have fun.
Exactly. And then eventually they said, oh, you know what, now we're going to charge you for it. And so a lot of the predictions deCarta made back then, that at some point they're going to pull the rug out and they're going to start charging people, and it's going to reduce the health of the ecosystems in certain ways. I think those actually did bear fruit.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I think deCarta, it was too long for deCarta to capitalize on them. And they couldn't, they just could never get that acquisition dance done. So that was it.
Okay,
so I'm happy. I'm very happy for them.
Yeah. So water under the bridge. So we're acquired by Uber. So
yes.
Pretend you're working at deCarta doing evangelism.
Yeah. Well, I probably would have been fired. I'm out of the job.
First get fired.
all the ops team is gone. The sales team is gone. I don't know about the there was barely only like 1 or 2 marketing people. I'm sure they're gone too. Like nobody's left except for the engineers and Kim, the CEO.
So what do you think from Uber's standpoint? Why do they care? Why do they care if they have a?
Well, so I thought there was a pretty I thought one of the good blog posts I saw, or maybe it was just a tweet, was they probably made up the cost of buying deCarta on the amount they're going to save from paying Google for the map service alone.
So you think they're going to replace Google with their stuff on a consumer side?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I totally understand on the back end.
Yeah, but I think they're going to replace it on the consumer side too. I mean, it's not like they were never using any of the advanced features of Google, and deCarta actually has an excellent routing engine. I mean, the routing engine in deCarta is actually really good. So
geocoding is the thing that I'm.
And they have a great geocoder. I mean, they have a great geocoder. They have a great reverse geocoder. They have a great local search. They actually have a pretty great product that would have been good for somebody. I just don't know how the acquisition did. I'm imagining it was somewhere at some political level or something like that.
Yeah.
The pricing, the amount was just too much. But the technology was pretty good. I mean, they could have invested some more in their core platform and brought it up to speed. But anyway, I think Uber will be replacing all of Google. They don't want anything Uber-related, any information Uber-related going through Google. Uber thinks they want to rule the universe. You've seen the stuff that they're saying they're going to do.
Totally.
Yeah, so if you want to rule the universe, you can't give over. Ruling the universe, you have to own the map. Apple wants to rule the universe, they own the map. Google owns the universe, they own the map. So if Uber has ideas about running the universe, they're going to have to own the map. So that's what I think they're doing.
So as far as deCarta is concerned, it's dead. I mean, they're not. Uber's going to fold it into their system, and it's going to be their own proprietary.
That would be my guess. I have no knowledge of that whatsoever, but I doubt they were making very much money off their public web services, and they may have some sort of clause somewhere in some contracts that they'll be producing software for a certain amount of time to some customers. But other than that, gone. I don't. Do you think what do you think? I don't think so.
I can't imagine. I mean, so if I had a website design that was based on deCarta and it was using it for their back end, geocoding, everything, right now, if I heard that my company was acquired by somebody who doesn't really care about being in that market, I would want to get my stuff off of it as soon as possible.
Oh, I would too. I mean, I think this is the Foundation DB story, just the same as the Foundation DB story.
Yeah.
Apple, gone, right? Apple acquired them. Oh, sorry, you built your whole solution on them. Gone.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time before we go ahead and say, you know what, Google says, hey, you have an hour, you have a year.
That's right.
Says, yeah, you got a week.
I mean, the fact that all the ops people are gone. Oh no, they're remote people, so they may still have. It was the remote ops people, so they may still have some ops people that were local that they're keeping on. But the fact that they're letting go of some of the ops people and stuff, I see it as just basically becoming an in-house service for Uber. Uber doesn't have any. They don't even have an API for their service. So
well, they don't want why do
exactly.
they need one, right? Use
Exactly.
our app and use our services. There's no linking into something.
Right.
If anybody were to link it, it might be like Apple with Siri, and you say, "Hey, get me something." But that, I mean, it would only be through Apple. They wouldn't let Google in. They would.
No, and the other thing they would do is that it would be just to purchase a route from them.
Yeah.
Right. Like I forget. I think it's on the United app. I know you say that Delta. I should be flying Delta, but I'm stuck on United. And sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad. But on the United app, I can order an Uber car right from the airport.
Yeah, I'm starting to see that more and more. They must be selling that sort of functionality. It's OpenTable does it as well.
Yes.
And Hyatt, on my Hyatt rewards app, that does it. So when I land, Hyatt says, "Hey, do you need a car?" And they must make a little bit of money off of that. But generally speaking, they're not signing these agreements with Google's and Microsoft's and Yahoo's and those people. They're signing them with fellow travel.
Exactly. Somebody who else isn't going to eat their lunch. I mean, maybe some of those sites have learned.
Yeah. Someone asked, does Lyft have an equivalent strategy? I would think I don't think it's the same, but it's the same idea that they don't want to give their proprietary information to Google to index.
I agree. But they don't. I don't think they have the same ambitions on the world though that Uber does.
No, Lyft is really just, hey, let's get you from point A to point B. Uber is this whole encompassing, we want to not only get you, we want to get packages, they want to be a delivery company, they want to do all these other things. So
I mean, my guess is they're trying to do the Google strategy. We're going to start with search. Google said, we're going to start with search, and then we'll make so much money doing search that we'll rule the whole world. And so maybe Uber's strategy is, we're going to start with driving people to and from a place, but, we're going to use that and our brilliant and moving things around to build out to the whole empire, right? That we're going to do the last mile problem, I guess. That would be my guess.
Yeah, someone says Uber can track drivers and build their POI database from customers. I think they can do that anyway.
Yeah.
I'm sure those apps are tracking drivers using some sort of additional API.
I think I wouldn't be surprised. deCarta could use OpenStreetMap to start with. I mean, it already knows how to use OpenStreetMap. I wouldn't be surprised. There's another company called Telenav. I think that's where Steve Pousty. Does he still work there?
Yeah, he still does.
Yeah. So Telenav's whole idea was they were going to do turn-by-turn navigation and they brought Steve on because they were going to stop paying TomTom and is it here? I don't know what Navtech is now called. Is it just here?
Here. Yeah.
I don't know if that's here. If the map, I've lost track of what they were. Like they were Nokia, then they were here.
It's here, and one of the E's has a little E that's kind of turned a little bit because it's not just here; it's here.
Yeah, but now I feel Indian. The here.
Yeah.
That's my Iranian relatives make that head gesture too. So I don't know if here is still here, if that's the data part of it, but whatever. The point is, Telenav was going to use OpenStreetMap and build OpenStreetMap, so they didn't have to, because that's one of the most expensive parts, actually, of the whole mapping thing. That was actually one of the parts that hurt deCarta. So if you want to hear what hurt deCarta also, was Telenav. Well, at the time it was not Telenav. At the time it was Navtech and TeleAtlas, and they still lived for the CD in the car, right?
Yeah.
So like when you got the Acura. When you got your Mercedes, James, and you got the in-nav navigation system, that data was a lot of money to those companies.
Yeah.
And so they hated this whole web mapping thing, and they kept squeezing deCarta left and right and not being very flexible. And deCarta would be like, "Look, you guys, Google's eating our lunch. We need something to do here," and they didn't do much at all to help with that. So I imagine that Uber will eventually move to OpenStreetMap. And it would be nice if they actually gave their data back, but I'm not going to hold my breath for it.
No, there's no way. And we've seen some of that from the Mapbox guys talking about Foursquare. Like they want to be able to geocode, but they sure as hell don't want their POIs to go back on OpenStreetMap, which I sort of guess. I understand because that's Foursquare's model is POIs.
I know,
but it's just sort of anti philosophy of OpenStreetMap.
Yeah, it makes me wonder how much of that is
No.
Since I like to come onto your show and make a whole bunch of enemies every single time I come on your show.
No. Finish your thought.
So I'm gonna finish my thought because I never seem to make a problem. I think the argumentativeness and cattiness of a portion, not the whole OpenStreetMap community, but there is a strong contingent of the OpenStreetMap community which is anti-business.
Absolutely. I don't think anybody would I don't think that's that amazing. I think a lot of people would agree.
And I think they make it so miserable for people that even people who might want to, out of goodwill, give it, they're like, you're so anti-me, screw you. I'm not giving you anything.
Yeah,
like,
how do I as a company even get involved? Because
you're so, make it so hard for me, and I don't know. I've seen more success with BSD-type licenses in general than I've ever seen with these, like, you're not allowed to do anything with our data, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. It just doesn't seem to work well. Although I guess you could say it's working well because there's a lot of data in OpenStreetMap. Anyway, I got a cold today. I'm not going to be necessarily so coherent or so good at my stirring up stuff.
Well, so OpenStreetMap itself survives despite itself. It's one of these projects that's so unwieldy that in its unwieldiness it is successful because nobody can force it to go one direction or the other. I mean, there's loud minorities, but as someone told me years ago, they love U.S. politics because nothing gets done, because it's 50-50. Someone is always in charge and the other person can't get, but nobody can pass anything. And so OpenStreetMap's sort of the same way, is nobody has control to actually move the project forward, and it's comforting for some people knowing that nothing will ever change.
That's true. Well, but even when they do change, it feels like, I don't know. Even when they do change, I wish they were a little bit more like the Linux community. I'd like a few benevolent dictators with a strong direction that at least it could move, and then you could decide if that project, I don't know. GPL plateaus, that's an interesting idea, Hobu.
Yeah,
that is interesting.
I mean, I guess Steve Pousty for a while was a benevolent dictator, but when he sort of sold out.
When he joined Microsoft, it was all done.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. I mean, he shows up, he gets in that photo, puts his arms around people, and away you go. But so
anyway, we're not here to complain about OpenStreetMap.
Yeah,
today.
so just finishing the thought on Uber.
Yeah.
What do you think the first uses for Uber will be? Do you think it's going to be back-end stuff slowly getting out to consumers, or do you think they'll rip the Google stuff out of the consumer apps first?
I think it's going to. That's an interesting question. I think the easiest for them to do would be to replace the consumer pieces.
Yeah, because because all that does is get my location, geocodes it. I don't even know if it geocodes it. No, it does. I think it does. But it puts a point on the street, and then you say, "Hey, I want to go to the San Francisco airport," and then all of a sudden these guys appear. Now their apps are a little bit different because their apps have to track here to there, and routing. But the consumer one doesn't really route, right? It just says, "I'm here and I want to go there."
And it actually, what it does is, I think it routes on the back end for the back end person, and then sends that route to the front end person and says this, like the user, and says this is where we're going to take you after they've already agreed on the route, right? Yeah. So and Google, I mean, deCarta has really good technology for that. So for me, I see it's going to be the consumer end is probably the easiest for them to take care of right away, because it's just pins on a map to start with, right?
Yeah, right. We're just doing a simple. On one of them, it's not even a geocode. It's just a GPS lookup.
Actually, there is no geocoding. It's all reverse geocodes. It's like, here's your point.
Yeah.
It's all reverse geocoding. Here's a point. Turn it into.
And then you search a POI database. So you start typing SFO, and it says, "Hey, do you want to go to San Francisco?" So it's not even doing a geocode.
No, and actually, deCarta has the built-in local search. Like, it can search things locally or search things nearby. It's got that technology. I see the consumer piece going first, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Canadian. Glenn's actually pretty right. It's the same thing as Google without having. It's actually, you know what it is? It's Google Maps for urban people.
Yeah, because I mean, they're so interested in getting into that delivery, the other stuff.
Well, and also even just knowing where you go to shop. If they can replace the taxi, most people I know who live in big cities are less likely to use cars.
True. Yes.
Right. Not in Phoenix probably, because that's a city built around cars. Mm-hmm. But in New York, in Chicago, most urban dwellers use a taxi, and so they're going to say, well, we'll do that instead. We know what stores we go to. We know all the stuff that you do. So it's the same thing that we.
Mark just not going to move off for now. So it sounds like consumer-wise, they're going to stick with the Google and Apple.
Mm-hmm. And they're just going to rip up the back-end stuff? Maybe.
Maybe initially. I mean, it doesn't cost them any money, I don't believe, to use Google or Apple inside those two ecosystems. I think Apple gives away their maps for free, and
you're right.
So does Google. So it's like there's really no incentive if. Oh, look at name dropper, Mark and his name dropper. Yeah, I was at the Bloomberg West guys, and
right. I was sitting in the booth with the Bloomberg West people, and we were just talking about how we smoke cigars and drink, good whiskey with the Uber CTO. See, that's why I feel like I could do that now that I have this like nice steampunk beard.
Yeah, we all want to know: did you make your bed? Or did you not?
Yes, I did. I did make my bed. It is made. It's just got a white duvet. It's got a white comforter. Actually, the other big news I'd like to share. We haven't adopted her because we're not going to, but I'm fostering a dog because my daughter and I. Can you see her? Let's see if you can see her. There she is.
Holy smokes! That's
Tahoe. Good girl. There she is. See, so we're fostering her. Anybody want to adopt a dog? A beautiful dog from the Santa Cruz Animal Shelter. Her name is Tahoe. She's 5 years old. My daughter and I volunteered. Yeah, it's a lot of dogs. She's about 90 pounds, I think. But she's a great German Shepherd. Anyway.
Cool.
Okay, so what else should we want to talk more Geo stuff? Can I do my Geo?
Yeah, so you have a rant, a comment.
Not a rant. No, I was going to say it's an existential crisis, actually.
Okay. So basically what Steve is hoping for is some mental help.
Yeah, actually from your audience who I've, after having been on 6 times, I feel like, we're all close.
Timony,
you want me to just call it my comforter? Does that make you feel better? Timony, instead of calling it duvet?
Duvet. Well, you're
anyway.
urban. It's what you do.
Yeah, Glenn likes the dog appearance. Good. Okay. So here's the thing. As everybody here knows, I talk a lot at shows. My job is basically a developer advocate. And so I talk, and I can't go to shows unless I get my talks accepted, really.
Yeah.
So this year, I applied for, I think, 6 different talk slots at Phosphor GNA, which is right in my backyard. Right? And then I applied, just recently found out, and I didn't get any. Not one talk.
0 for 6.
0 for 6. Which is, and the other thing I think about this that's odd for me is that my talks are usually well attended, and people usually thank me for such a great talk. Not that my talks are always great, but usually I give a pretty good talk. And it's usually about things that nobody else in the geo community is talking about. So it's usually like last year when I talked about VertX at Phosphor G in Portland, no one else was talking about VertX, and I think it was a really interesting demo for people to see something outside of what they're normally going to hear. So all 6 of them were rejected for Phosphor G, and then also I had both of my workshops rejected for Phosphor GEU, and one of them was Docker for geo developers. And to me, you sprinkle magic Docker sauce on stuff, and that's like a guarantee that your talk's going to get accepted. Because everybody wants to know something about Docker, and it kind of actually makes me sad about how little Docker's being talked about in our community.
Yeah. I mean, so my question to you is, I haven't given a Phosphor G talk in a while. Are they still they're voted on, right?
No, I don't think Phosphor GNA was voted on. I don't think there was a vote. Was there?
I don't know.
Can somebody in the IRC tell us for sure if it was a vote? Because I don't remember it being a vote.
Yeah, there may or may not have been. So it was a vote, then you need to be more marketing. If it's not, then it brings up a bigger question as organizational structure of these talks. Now, but the other thing is so this is the existential crisis for me. The existential crisis for me is a lot of you know that I don't do as much core geo anymore. Like my day in and day out is not geo. I still love geo and I do geo work. But thanks, Mark. Mark says hanging out with you is a good place to claw my way back up from the bottom. But I do love geo, and I think I usually bring geo topics into my normal work, and I also bring my now normal work, like advanced cloud technologies or other programming paradigms, back to the geo world. I guess my existential crisis is, should I just kind of give up on geo for now and be like, you know what? I'm not in it enough. I'm not in it
to be considered a geo person anymore? Like, does the geo community no longer see me as a geo person? Like, I don't have enough street cred. That's my existential question.
So that is a good point. So if the people running the conference have no idea who you are,
Right?
then the answer is probably yes. Who's this guy? OpenShift. What the hell is that?
But my talks weren't even OpenShift talks. My talks weren't even. The talk that I was really excited to give was like microservices and geo. But the one I really wanted to give was a talk about how the geo community can start building microservices and doing fun stuff with them. And I have an app that actually uses it, and I was going to show it. So anyway, go ahead. But sorry to interrupt you.
But if it's like, let's say I was the chair, like I would know that you are a geo guy, and I'd say, yeah, let's figure out how to get Steve Pousty. That's
all the Steves are the same. It's okay. We all look alike.
Oh yeah, except one's much taller than the other.
Yeah, exactly.
So you bring up an interesting question: is how do you market yourself? And I don't know who ran Phosphor GNA. Do you know?
Andrew Ross, I think, the Eclipse guy, and he knows who I am.
Yeah,
but I don't think he was on the selection committee. And he apologized to me and he said, sorry you couldn't get in, but you didn't get in. So I guess
the choice is to have OpenShift be a sponsor, and
that was in discussion. That was in discussion. But if none of I and one of my coworkers put in, between the two of us, we had 10 talk submissions, and not one of our talks got accepted. So you tell us that none of our talking points are interesting, and I don't mean so. Here's the part where I sound like a whiny little baby, right? But
come on.
I'm just trying to think of I'm about to say something uncomfortable. I'd like to say that as best I can without being too uncomfortable. I think my talks are high quality, in general.
Yes, they are. They're always enjoyable. I've never been able to talk with you that I didn't enjoy. That's true.
And so I think there's a lot of talks that are sometimes accepted that are about some obscure, like I did X, Y, and Z with this little bit of geotechnology to solve this one little problem in some place. And that I understand those case stories are interesting, but usually those also aren't people who've given a lot of talks. I don't know. It all sounds whiny, and I'm kind of just giving up on that. So I think I'd like to stick with the original existential question, which is, am I no longer geo enough? Yeah, Hobu, that's really the only one. The Phosphor G series. What else is there for geo that you can think of? Like Hobu asked, is Phosphor G the only viable non-Esri general geo conference? What else is there? There's Phosphor G is the only other
than the Eurissa / GETA /
okay.
Whatever the hell those are.
But I don't even. Yeah, I mean I could speak at what's the government one too? I guess I should speak at that one.
GeoInt.
Yeah, GeoInt. I guess I could speak at GeoInt as well. But anybody else is welcome to. There's a bunch of people. There's 21 people in the room on IRC. Any of you can chat. Join in and suggest another one. But that little track has the monopoly, but on GeoTalks. So maybe I should. Maybe it's really. You have to be more in the geo community talking about hardcore geo things to actually get talks accepted. And I'm just wondering if that's true.
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that, because it would be interesting if we talked to Peter Batty was on last week, and I was on the selection committee with him. I don't remember the process, honestly. I thought it was a voting thing for us. But workshops were not. There was a team that evaluated the workshops.
Right.
But the general sessions were voted upon.
Yeah, I kind of like that. And that actually feels somewhat better. You know what I bet though, and this is the part. Then that becomes kind of a popularity contest.
It does. Like somebody like me, I could tweet about it all the time. A ton of people see it, whether they're going or not. I'll say, yeah, that sounds interesting, and all of a sudden I'm selected 100. Where somebody who doesn't, nobody knows what they're doing, but he's made something amazing. He or she made something amazing. You never see it because nobody knows what it is.
Right, and that's the other problem, I think, and I'm not saying this in a bad way at all, because I do think it's important. That's also, doing the voting contest doesn't help with diversity. Right?
Definitely does not.
Right, because if you think about most of the people who are well known in our community, it's mostly male and almost all white. Almost.
Yeah, so people are going to, no offense to Paul Ramsey, but I guarantee you his talk would be #1 voted upon.
Exactly. So if you want to,
but we know that's going to happen. So why vote on it? It's guaranteed it's going to happen.
Right. So I don't know a good way to address this, and really, we can make it into a more general thing. But really, if people want to tweet out to me or something about whether they think you have to be more full-time geo to actually get a geo to be into these geo conferences, I don't know. To me, it seems pretty provincial, if that's true, right? In the sense,
Yeah,
that like, well, you're gonna miss out on things happening outside of the community. That's all.
it is frustrating though, right? Because in a way, your stuff's interesting because your day job is not geo. I have no idea what you do all day, but you do something all day.
Right.
And then you try and mix a little bit of geo into it, which is more interesting than, hey, I'm here doing some PostGIS map server thing, and I used some tile caching, and here's my demo, and it's on Leaflet. I've seen that talk. I give that talk myself.
Right. So that's the thing, and so I just and this is back to the gripe I give way back when, which I still feel guilty about. I think I was on my porch for that one back when I lived in 3 houses ago. But where I said, if you don't learn programming, you're not like in blah 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 in the geo community, you're diminished. I don't actually think that. I just think you've diminished the ability to which you're going to go up in a strictly geo field, right? If you don't learn programming, if you want to be like a
senior GIS analyst, only pays so much. It only has so much.
And even getting now to a senior GIS analyst position, you're going to have to program, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
You need Python experience.
Right. I think you can not learn to program and be a biologist or something else, and GIS is something you do on the side. But I think our community is kind of provincial, and I wish we would be a little bit less provincial about like, it's all about geo. And if it's not strictly 100% geo, then it's not something that we really talk about or look at about as much. There are people in our community who are outside that, who look outside, but I don't know. It'd be nicer if it wasn't. We wouldn't have to be 4 or 5 years behind all the trends.
You'd be able to give a Docker talk, and people would be excited.
Yeah, I mean, because I think that people should be excited. And it's not even like a Red Hat specific project. It's not even OpenShift specific. It's just a cool technology that people should learn about. Containers are going to be important. So, yeah, right. See, Timothy, IPython, R, and Elasticsearch, right? And no one really talks about it that much.
Yeah, I especially R. I mean, everyone talks about like I want to integrate R, but you never see people never give R talks.
No, I agree. So
yeah, Esri-centric's the problem. There's plenty of national conferences that have an Esri-centric slant to them, and if you want to present using whatever you're doing with an Esri product, it's easy to get in and talk that. And maybe you can do some, Dev Summit stuff. But then again, what's your audience? I mean, what's the point of going to show that?
I don't know. The Esri talk would be very hard for me to give. Just because it's not where my heart is. Usually I talk about things that I'm passionate about, and my heart's not really into that. So.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And they're going through some weird internal changes now anyway, so who knows what they're going to be like here in the next couple of years.
That should be fun to see.
We'll see. Everybody's leaving.
Well, I mean, also a lot of the senior management is kind of old, and like in an age of retirement age thing.
Yeah, well.
So it happens, right?
It happens, yeah. So it's whatever it's going to be, and it'll be something that it could be the same or different, but it'll be the same until Jack retires, so it doesn't matter. It's talking about benevolent dictators. I mean, nothing gets done at Esri without Jack's tacit approval, so the company looks exactly how it does because it's Jack's vision. So.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I guess I'll keep applying, but maybe I just won't apply as much or count on being able to go. I just always thought that was one of those shows where my talks would be appreciated. Actually,
well, I'm surprised you didn't get into Phosphor GNA.
Yeah, I was too. I was really surprised, actually, that none of my talks. So, but anyway, it is what it is. Some of my
Brian
talks.
Flood. I'll be real quick, Brian. Brian, I can't really get into details because some people tell me them in confidence, but a lot of people are leaving, and it's just there's some turnover going on, and I don't think it's any changes short term greatly, but some people who've been around for a long time are leaving because they can't grow and it can't go anywhere. You're done. There's no growth.
Which is the benefit and the drawback of living in Redlands.
Yeah,
right?
and you know what? Some people love. I mean, the reason people work at Esri have worked there for a long time is because they can work on a project for years and they don't have to worry about, new products coming and going. If you're the ArcGIS desktop guy, I mean, you've been a job for 20 years, and you'll have another job for 20 years.
And having worked there myself as well, the other thing is, if you fit in well, if that culture works for you, it's a pretty great culture. Like, they're really good to people that fit, if you're okay being there, then it's pretty great, right?
Yeah.
So it just didn't work well for me, which is okay. But for other people.
How many jobs have you had since you left Esri?
Do you know what I just a bunch? No, actually, I haven't had a lot. I've only had, but I've switched back and forth to the same company twice. So I worked at one of your competitors when I left Esri, ICF, used to be Jones and Stokes. Then I went to deCarta. Then I went back to ICF. Then I went back to deCarta. And then I went to LinkedIn, and then I'm now at Red Hat. And I've been here now over 3 years.
I was going to say, you have been there for a while, have you?
And I actually love it. First of all, they tolerate my personality very well, which is very important for me since my personality is not an easy one.
Really?
Yeah. Well, look at I have a tendency to say things very directly and not always with the nicest edges on them. And I have a tendency to say it at a time when other people might choose to be quiet. Right? And so Red Hat's been very good to me with all of this. Like, it's a culture that encourages it. I get to work in technology. I don't have to. We've talked about this before. I mean, and it is the provincial part about geo. I think some parts of the geo world are pretty provincial. Like, they think the whole world revolves around geo, and it can for some. But for me, I like having the freedom to be also outside of the geo world. I love geo. My roots are in there. I like working on geo problems. But I like also reading about other interesting things and working on other interesting problems besides geo problems. That's all. So I like, and so
and here you are working for a company that's outside of geo.
Yes, and loving it and trying to bring geo to the rest of the world. Like, if you see most of my talks, they usually involve some aspect of geo and telling people how fun and exciting it is to work on maps. So, and geodata. But oh, you guys want to talk about the Esri using the Mapbox vector tile spec, embrace and extend? Yeah, of course.
It's interesting. So so my take on it, kudos to Esri, right? They could have totally invented their own thing. The problem I see is going to happen is Esri is going to say, yeah, we're going to adopt the Mapbox tile spec, but then we want to make these 50 changes because it doesn't work with how we do things, and the specs kind of diverge again. Either Mapbox says, yeah, no problem, we'll accept those, we'll add them on as extensions, or Esri's, they diverge and go off to being separate things again.
So do you want to know my cynical take on it?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so my cynical take is the same as they do with all the OGC specs. It's a checkbox for them because they know that Mapbox owns the tile space, right? So if they want to get in, there's a bunch of federal government people who are like, oh, we want to use Mapbox because it uses open source technology. There's a lot of the GAO just came out with a statement that you need to justify why you're not using open source.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, some of the DoD people what we've been talking to, you have to come up with a justification for using Oracle. If you say you need an Oracle database, you have to fill out more paperwork. You want to use Postgres? No problem. So my point is, Esri's using this as a checkbox to say that, look, we play nice. Look, we're going to do the spec. Then they're not going to fully implement the spec. They're going to leave some things in any place with a little bit of ambiguity or something. They're just going to leave it open, just like they did with all the OGC specs. Then they're going to say it's Mapbox's job to fix it. We did a blah, 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 blah. But they're going to use it at that time to get people to buy their product and say, look, anytime you want to move to Mapbox, you can move to Mapbox when it's not true. And then they're going to do what you said. Or they're going to drop support for it and come out with their new one because they're like, oh, you're already on server, but we have a better format, like what they're doing with which Hobu can talk about with the LiDAR data. Oh, yeah, we implemented that spec before, but now we've got a much better one, and you're already using ArcGIS Desktop for all your LiDAR data, so you might as well use our new spec. I don't trust it for a minute, Brian. Yeah, whatever, Brian. It's the core. You telling me they're going to use the exact same, they're going to do the spec, or they're actually going to use the exact same software as Mapbox? Brian Flood says, not a checkbox. It will be the core renderer in desktop, mobile, and web. What does that mean, Brian?
Brian's a glass half full guy, though. So
Brian, he likes. I mean, and to his kudos, he's done a very good job building products around the Esri ecosystem. Yeah, he's done a very good job. Yeah, they're not going to fully implement unless they're using the exact same software, Brian, and they're actually contributing to the open source bits that Mapbox makes open source. I don't trust them. Period.
And I really think the spec is going to have to change because they do things differently than Mapbox does things. So they're going to say, look, we'll start with the Mapbox spec, and then we're going to add these extensions. You can call it whatever you want. They're going to add functionality to allow us to do things that we did a little bit differently, and then they're different again. You know,
yeah.
It's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's just I can't imagine.
It's a bad thing.
And Esri coming to an agreement. There's one spec, as that's.
I actually think it's a bad thing. And if it was a smaller company, I wouldn't say it's a bad thing. But because Esri is such a large player in this space, I say it's a bad thing because what they're going to do is make it incompatible. They're going to basically get Mapbox. They're doing this to get Mapbox people to use the Esri products. And then once they put the incompatibilities in the extension, they're going to use it to not let people play with. This isn't like IBM and Oracle going head to head. This is Mapbox and Esri, right? And they're trying to. It's a bad thing in my either. Yeah. The exciting thing to me would be if they were contributing and using the exact same source product as Mapbox. That would be interesting to me. They've proven again and again that they can't be trusted with specs. To me. Them saying they're adopting any spec, I don't see any reason to think why this would be different.
Yeah, and I don't think that's nefarious on their I mean, to me, it wouldn't surprise me the least bit. I wouldn't hold it. I mean, they're going to do whatever Esri wants to do to make money, right?
I would, having been inside and watching the sausage be made, I would not be as kind as you would be.
We just talked about this.
What do you mean?
You know, you being less kind.
Yes. So I think you're giving a very interesting. You're very kind to them. That's all I'll say.
Ooh, can I get that in writing, or we just have?
Nope. Nope. Exactly. They can come back to this. All I said was I think you're giving them too much credit with specs.
Yeah. Someone asked where Boundless is. From what I understand, Boundless is still Boundless. They're still doing all the work they were before. They became profit from non-profit, so there was some turnover from staff that didn't want to work for a for-profit company, but they're still supporting everything they were before. They just make money now.
Okay, so here's where I get to talk some about that as well. Do you want me to talk some about that? My feelings on that?
I'd like to add some well-researched thoughts about that.
Well, it's not really nothing that I do is actually very well researched, so I'm not going to claim that. I'm just going to this part of my body right over right here, the hip. That's where it's coming from, right off the hip.
I was just pointing to your ass, but either way.
No, I can point to that, and it's coming out of that, but it's coming, off the hip.
Gotcha.
It seems like to me, Boundless is becoming just a service company, right? I don't know how they can. They've lost all the committers or rock stars they used to have. I can't think of. I was trying to go through my head and think of any of the rock stars that are still left there. I couldn't think of one. Can you think of one?
I'm not offhand, but I don't think that changes anything. I mean,
yes, it does.
I had Paul Ramsey on, and Paul Ramsey just basically, look, I've been there for 5 years. That does nothing. I mean, I take him at his word. I don't think he had any. He doesn't care whether they make money or not.
No. I don't. I'm not saying that Paul thought the company was terrible. Right? That's not what I'm saying. Okay. What I'm saying though is their position before was they were like trying to be the Red Hat of Geo open source, right?
And they're not.
We have all the core committers. You want something, we can drive the direction of the product. You want a patch put in for you, we can do that for you as well. And I don't think that's there anymore. So I think they're just becoming more of a service organ. Like we'll be the support organization for your Phosphor G installations. I don't know. Maybe not. I mean, that one I can be completely wrong on. That's just looking from the outside. They've lost all the people that were the core committers. And I don't know why. I'm not saying it was because they were a bad place or anything. They just don't have them anymore. It could be people wanted to go on to other problems or something. So.
Yeah.
Right. So that's all.
Hives. Yeah, you can't. I mean, that's right. I mean, and a lot of those people had worked for that company for a long time, and when change happens, you just say, you know what, it's the perfect time for me to get out.
Exactly. So who knows why they left? I just, in terms of their market position, I don't think they can be what they put themselves out to be before. That's all.
Yeah, can they be the Esri of open source? Does anyone really want to be the Esri of open source?
Well, I think that actually was their goal. I mean, I think usually they're competing against, like, they wanted to go head-to-head at Esri in their Esri accounts because there's a lot of money there. But
to be the Esri, you have to control things.
I know.
And that's harder to do when it's open source because...
And that's a tough slog, right? I mean, that's a tough slog even just to get into the Esri accounts, given how tightly Esri controls those accounts.
Yeah. You making a note?
No. I'm just cleaning up my desk a little bit. I'm such a slob.
Well, I'm glad we could have this talk while you clean your desk.
Well, there's just things sitting around, and my brain is busy. And if I don't keep it a little bit active on that's like why I listen to music, like classical music, sometimes when I'm trying to actually write or something, because I need one cycle of my brain to be tied up. The part of my brain that usually goes, oh, let's go look at what's on Facebook now. It gets tied up in the classical music, and I can actually stay. Can't have words though. If it has words while I'm trying to write, then bad things.
Just a little baby Mozart, and away you go.
Exactly. Did you also see the interesting thing about that study? It wasn't that Mozart makes people smarter. It's listening to music that you like makes people smarter. So people who liked Mozart and listened to Mozart did better on those tests. But if you liked heavy metal, if you listened to heavy metal and then took the test, you would do better. So it's giving your brain some pleasure helps you to make you smarter. That's all. Just thought I'd give that
it's
a little TED talk right there.
Yeah, I'm not a scientist, but that sounds logical.
Yeah, that was the little.
I'll subscribe to your newsletter.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Not that I'm going to write one, but.
I do one a week, and except I didn't do one last week, but I normally do one a week.
I know, and you get great readership. We're going to have to wrap up soon. We have 3 minutes because you said you had a hard stop.
Yeah, I actually have a management meeting I have to go to. So.
So, okay, is there any last questions or anything? Or anybody else want to yell at me for being such a whiny person on this? No,
you're not whiny. You've actually been a little subdued today.
I told you I had a cold.
Oh, okay. Well,
and I actually still want to say, because I still feel guilty about saying it, all you people who do mapping in desktop GIS and you don't do any programming, more power to you. It just depends on what you want to do with your life. And that's nothing wrong with anything that you want to do with your life. If you feel comfortable and happy doing that, that's great. It's just
I mean, if you want to grow a beard and have some gray come in, who's going to stop you?
Dude, this is not some. This is like a lot. It looks like I was trying to drink bleach or something. I was
going to say, it looked like you fell asleep and your chin went on like a little fence that was white. And you just,
Yeah, exactly.
Stroke that neck beard.
There you go.
How greasy is it right now?
Oh, I haven't showered yet today, so not that greasy. I shower about every day, every other day, so I don't want to get greasy because then it gets itchy too. It's just that everybody want to know. Does Python scripting count? No. I mean, depends on how much. Well, certainly not Esri Python scripting at all, unless they've changed their model a lot, which I could be completely wrong, and they've changed it a lot. But Python scripting is the beginning. You're rabbinical. Nice. Beard.
I mean, if you're just copying and pasting Python code, that's a good skill to have to be successful as being a GIS analyst.
Yes.
But if you're going to actually write routines in Python or be able to write new libraries, that's different than just.
And actually, my friend Cyrus Hyatt, who I think has done it, you should get him. Well, he doesn't like speaking though as much, but you should get him on once. He'd be interesting to talk to. He works for Farallon right now.
Yeah, does he now?
Yeah, and he does a lot of really interesting things at Farallon. You should see some of the stuff he does. And again, he actually has like real world experience as opposed to like Paul, who just builds software. Like he really actually makes really interesting. Like Cyrus builds interesting things. But anyway, he is actually using Python to use some of the FOSS stuff to do some of the same stuff that Esri does, except it doesn't throw that exception 50 hours into the process. Or like he's actually really writing Python and then bringing in the geo pieces where he needs it. So in scripting, if it's just for scripting, no. You might as well learn shell.
Mm.
Right? And that's scripting as well. So scripting is definitely a valid form of programming. I just don't think it's being a programmer.
Yeah, and honestly, I always like scripting as the way to get into it, because if you start really understanding scripting, and then you start understanding objects and libraries and methods and all those other things, if that starts getting you excited, then you have your way in, because you've already begun to understand how this works. Versus saying, look, I'm just going to buy Intro to Python and start coding a hello world.
So the amount of and wait, Silas, I think Python's awesome. It's my. Here's the 3 languages I use. I use Java for like my enterprise-y, or it's just the language I grew up on, so it makes me feel happy. I don't have any inherent biases. I love Python. It's my scripting language, like one of my more loosely compiled, my non-compiled language of choice, and then JavaScript just because it's everywhere. But those are the 3 languages I use. I love Python. Flask is awesome. So,
yeah.
Actually,
well, good. I gotta kill you, man. I gotta go.
I know, that's all right. It's fine. We all work around your schedule. That's fine. That's fine. That's okay.
It's my show. You get your own show. You can kill it. But I think we should have. I think we should have maybe a round table. Get a Python guy, a JavaScript guy, Java guy, a .NET guy, and just go through and talk about this stuff, because I think it would be interesting.
But I don't want to get into a language battle, because those are kind of boring.
No, I wasn't inviting you.
Okay, well, I don't want anyone to get into a language battle. I think those discussions are boring.
No, I didn't mean from a language battle. I wasn't going to say, hey, which is the best one, which one should I learn?
Oh, by the way, on Stack Overflow, there is a question that I was a GIS analyst. How do I get into programming? The GIS Stack Overflow? Mine is the top voted answer, just to let you know.
Well, that's me, because I'm always logging in.
No. It's mine. I got like medals based on that answer I gave. It's a good answer.
Yeah.
I gotta go make my bed. It is made. There is no duvet cover on it either. It's in the wash. Ew.
Yeah.
Oh, Hobu, you're fired. J2ME. Gross.
Yeah.
Who's the Ruby guy? Someone without much brains. All right.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Have a great week. Remember, nothing this Friday, but we'll be here a week from Friday with hopefully Ian White. But
Cyrus Hire. You should hit up Cyrus.
You know what? If I can't get commitment from Ian by Friday, I'll pit him up and see if he's interested.
Okay, I'll push him to get talked to. Yeah, deal.
All right, guys. Take care.